I start, I just want to say, you know how everything you read on the internet is true. Well, I wanted to just say there's something out there that says that my husband and I, who own 2 acres on Vanahasky Lane, also own 26 acres somewhere. And whoever knows where that 26 acres is, please let us know, because he better get cutting that grass, and Mrs. Spear better get sending us the taxes for it, because we haven't paid it ever. So, good evening, board and township citizens. I am Charlotte Colbert, and once again I'm here to talk about the Mingo Church Sewage Project. First, I'd like to stipulate that I'm speaking here for myself and only others that desire the public sewage. I would also like to make myself clear that I'm not a civil engineer, nor am I an attorney. But as an educated layperson, I assure you I can read, comprehend, and interpret data that I've received from the DEP, the disclosed and undisclosed information at these meetings, as well as research I've done on my own. I'm no longer the naive resident you first met in April when I asked what was going on with this project, when at least 3 people that are here concealed information that was later pried out of them. Zooming into the present, last Saturday morning on our way to our granddaughter's last soccer meet, we were driving up Mingo Church with the car vents open, and all I can say is I wish I could have captured the lovely fresh air so all of you could have experienced it. You know, the Mingo Church neighborhood where everyone has this first-rate sewage system. Yes, I do understand most of the 104 people in this project area have septic systems that work now. But that isn't the entire point of this struggle. We need the security that public sewage provides. The DEP states in its brochure that the life of a septic system is an average of, and this is a real shocker to them, 15 to 40 years. It says it can be longer if properly maintained. I don't have statistics on these 104 homes, but I bet if you check, many of these homes' septic systems are within the upper age range. We personally get our tanks pumped every 2 years. This year was a cost of $350, but that's all we do. If this board thinks the people in this area of this project can't afford to tap into sewage, to a sewage system, how do they think we're going to afford a bank loan with a much higher interest rate over a shorter term to put in a new sewage system if theirs fails? But that won't be the township's problem, now will it? A sewage system, as I have become intimately aware, simply stated, is made up of a tank or tanks for the solid waste and a leach bed, also referred to as a drain field. The way it works is fundamental. All water runs out of your house from one main drainage pipe into your tank. The tank holds the wastewater until the solids settle to the bottom and the liquid wastewater, or effluent, exits into the leach bed, where it's supposed to percolate into the soil, where it removes the harmful bacteria and viruses that we pass in our feces. It's a 2-step process. This leads me to the dye test notion. According to a Pennsylvania DEP website, dye testing cannot confirm the absence of a malfunction. Another article called What a Septic Dye Test Can Tell You plainly states that as popular as the septic dye test method is, its usefulness is highly limited. Dye test failures are rare, and when a system does fail, it's usually already showing signs of leaks or clogs, such as backed up toilets and drains, sewage odors, and standing water around the tank and drain field. It's also possible to get inaccurate results by using too little or too much water. In other words, a septic dye test isn't enough to prove a septic system is working, only that a total and complete failure exists. And what about the second step of the sewage process, the part where the soil removes the viruses and bacteria? That isn't addressed at all with the dye test. That makes me sick even to think about it. All of this leads to Mr. Maple's fixation on this need for everyone to get a dye test, to see if we are in grievous need to warrant a public sewage, to warrant public sewage. On March 28, 2024, Mr. Maple wrote to Attorney Tara Oliver of the DEP. I believe he wrote to her because of the consent order, and that the dye testing was really just a red herring, probably to get the township off the hook and put the onus back on the Mingo Church area homeowners. I suspect the real desire is to get the permanent solution portion of the consent order stricken or modified by using the nonsense about the Harshman study to justify these dye tests. And then the results of the dye test will, of course, give a legal exit for the township to deny us public sewage, because we will not be able to meet the second failure rate standard. What I'm saying is because it is almost impossible to fail this dye test, there will not be enough homes with a full-fledged breakdown of their sewage system to count towards the need. All we want is to be treated like the Finland-Rama residents were treated. Did they need dye tests? Did they need it?
They did it. I don't know whether or not they needed it, but they did it.
Did they have 8 of the 24 homes fail those dye tests?
I can get back to you. I was an audience member when they
Okay.
used the dye test.
Because that would be 30%. Or did they get sewage only because they sued the township? Okay? So what is the real reason the township wants this project stopped? I just don't understand why this board doesn't want to rise to the occasion to help its citizens move into a more secure future. What say, all of you? Let's hear your answers on the public record, not just behind closed doors. I am hoping the rest of the board will not just give in and go along. We need you to help us and to fight for our cause. Do you own research on dye testing? Do you do your own research on dye testing? Or you're welcome to look at my book. I have all kind of research on it. You're welcome to come to my house, sit down with us, have coffee. I'll make a cake, whatever it takes. And I'll give you copies of my information. Just don't give up on us. We're your Union Township neighbors. We're not strangers. Okay? Thank you, everyone. We have a big deck.
She's making cake.
Hey, we have a big deck.
She's making cake.
We do, I mean, we want to explain again. First of all, I have no objection to the sewage. When I say something,
We can't hear you.
We can't hear you.
You gotta turn your speakers on to
Please.
speak up.
we're not, okay.
Please.
So, when I explain to you what goes on about sewage, this is even my experience with building sewage system as an attorney. I have nothing against it. If we can get the funding for it, that's great. But in the past, when I explained things to you, it wasn't to put the sewage down, it was to elaborate on what goes on. Now, TJ, you've heard me, you've worked for banks, and I'm not an engineer. You want to explain the sewage process to Mrs. Colbert?
Yeah, I think we've talked about it a number of times now at a couple different public meetings, but there's.
Let me just say one other thing.
Sure.
I know that the H2O or whatever it was, H2O I thought it was called.
Yeah.
It was like 2.6 something million that, and I don't think it's been, nobody went for that
No, I
grant.
have an email December 21st of Harshman finalized the H2O grant last year.
But it wasn't,
We never got it.
no, but
But we
did you
didn't
apply
stop.
for it?
Yeah, so here's Harshman's email stating that he finalized and we applied
Oh,
for December
okay, but
21st.
didn't you have to have that second part of the, what
The
was it?
permit.
Yeah, the
The
permit
second
in
permit.
before you could apply for that?
You have to have your, that's sort of where I was going
Okay,
with my,
alright.
there's, as Dennis alluded to, a number of steps with
Right.
implementing a
I
sewage facilities
understand.
project. And there's the planning phase, which is the
Right, I
Act five
understand.
thirty-seven phase, which was completed in 2019 and approved in 2020. And then, once you have your Act 537 plan completed, you move then into the permitting phase, which we've talked about. There's essentially two main permits that you get to implement a sewage project: the NPDES Part 1 permit and the Water Quality Management Part 2 permit. Yes, and in July of 2022, the consulting engineer at the time applied for the Part 1 permit, the NPDES permit, and DEP asked the question of the township. They asked for the status of the submission of the Part 2 permit, the Water Quality Management Part 2 permit. DEP has a policy where they will not, generally, they will not approve just one of the permits on their own. They want to review both permits concurrently and then issue them simultaneously. So there was a long deliberate process back and forth with DEP last year. Obviously, the engineer at the time is no longer, at the time when the permit was submitted, is no longer the engineer. Our office stepped in January and tried to get up to speed as quickly as possible with where things stood with this project. And DEP confirmed to us last summer that there never was a Water Quality Management Part 2 permit submitted to their office for review. So, we obtained, our office, Bankson, obtained all of the records. We did a file search at DEP's office in Pittsburgh and obtained all of the files that DEP has on the Mingo Circle project, everything from the planning and the permitting, and tried to kind of get a feel for where things were. And it became pretty clear that, they had some preliminary concepts in mind at the time for a gravity collection system to serve 104 homes and a number of houses that were going to be on grinder pumps. And then they were going to construct a wastewater treatment plant that would have discharged to Froman Run down somewhere along Garvin Road. But our office has not been provided. I know the township has asked for all of the files from the engineer at the time. I don't believe the township ever received those documents. And certainly our office, Bankson, has not seen any paperwork at all to show that there was a design in progress or a permit application made for an actual sewage treatment plant. So that's kind of where the project is at this point. The township did get some grant money back in November of 2020.
How much?
They received $500,000 from Washington County LSA. I believe that grant agreement was signed by the township in December of 2025 or December of 2020 for $500,000.
Where's that money at?
It has not been utilized yet. That money's
You still have it?
That money's still available, and it's intended for the construction of the
Is
project.
there a time limit on that money?
Back in 2019, when the engineer completed the planning process, the cost estimate at the time was, I forget the exact number, but it was
2.7 million.
in that vicinity, in that ballpark. So obviously 500,000 was a small component of that much larger and more expensive project. When the township had done their planning process and figured on their cost estimates, they had assumed they would use that $500,000 towards the construction of the project, and they also assumed that they would collect a tap-in fee of $4,500 from all of the 104 residents, which would generate approximately $500,000. The rest of the money then was planned to be borrowed from one of the typical funding agencies that's available for a municipal project of this size, whether that be RUS or whether that be Penvest. And when the engineer did calculations to estimate the monthly user cost back in 2019 for the wastewater treatment plant project and the collection system, the estimated monthly user cost was going to be $126 per household per month, on top of the $4,500 tap-in fee that the homeowner would have to buy, and pay the township, and the cost of installing the lateral, and potentially the grinder pump, if the residence was to be served by a grinder pump. So, generally these funding agencies will make some determination as to what is considered an affordable sewage bill, and in my experience, $126 sewage bill would be considerably higher than what Penvest would consider to be affordable at that time. Obviously, all of those figures were 2019 cost estimates. We've had significant global events that have impacted supply chains, and construction costs have increased considerably since that time. Bankson earlier this year updated those project cost estimates, and they're expensive projects, and the estimated monthly user cost is considerable unless there's sizable grant money that's awarded to the township to assist with this project. So certainly the failure rate of the residences, those 104 houses is a very important component of determining the need for this project overall, as is the overall project cost.
What he's trying to say, Mr. Colbert, is the reason why you do the dye test. And I tried to explain this before. I'm not against the sewage, but when you go through, when you start the process, you'll do a design or whatever, but then it has to go, DEP has to go through a process, and they do what they call a rating. The more malfunctioning systems you have, at least in my experience, the higher rating you have in terms of getting grant.
Okay, but.
Now, if you make those people correct that system, if you do those dye tests,
That's the question we'll have to address. But right now, what I'm saying is, if you do the dye test, it will determine your ranking, and the higher ranking you have in terms of DEP, the more likely you're going to get grant money.
I understand, but what happens if they fail? And I guarantee you, I live on Mingo Church Road. I bet you at least 50-60% will fail with the tests they do, all right? And so what happens then? You make all those people put in systems or holding tanks? $1,000 a month a pump or something?
We'll have to address that at the time.
Yeah.
What I'm saying to
But
you,
you're opening a can of worms.
but no,
It's catch-22. You don't test and you don't get funding. You test and you become Big Brother. It's a really.
Mrs. Colbert, do you remember the El Remo sewage system down there? I was the one who was pretty much the architect in terms of finance. In that situation, there was $1,000 tap fee. Were you guys? I think you were. No, you weren't. $1,000 tap fee.
$64.
$64.
$62 rate.
And I knew what to do in order to get the grant money. So I'm trying to make this thing, if it's doable, you need to go and get the best bang to get grant money. Because the more grant money you get,
Right.
the less
we're
you're
gonna be
using
paying.
it. So that's what I'm trying. That's what I've been trying to tell you.
Okay, is there any other grant money? Now that,
Let me explain to you. Now you asked that question. So what we do when you start this process, you're supposed to have a joint meeting with RUS, Rural Utility Systems, and Tammy knows the same thing. Rural Utility Systems and also Penvest. You have a joint meeting. And what they do is they look at your figures and they'll say, Penvest will say, you do it RUS, and RUS will say, you do it Penvest, because they have different grant needs. And so they look at different circumstances about giving more grant.
okay, but the fact that you have a consent order and it states that a permanent solution must be made or whatever, doesn't that have any weight?
Well, there was a letter from the attorney, Gary Sweat. You've seen the letter?
Yeah.
What does it say, TJ? Do you have it there in front of you?
But doesn't that carry any weight as far as
Well,
the
here,
need or the how, you know what I'm saying, that doesn't that carry any weight is we need to have this done
TJ,
as a township?
okay, TJ, you went to the meeting, we had a meeting with DEP.
That's right.
And what did
October
they-
2023, yes.
And when we met with DEP about the system, what did they tell you about the records and all that, their concerns about this?
They had some concerns with the project costs and the overall level of need. Right? That's my recollection.
That's my recollection. But so what we're trying to say is, if we're going to do the sewage project, you have to do it the right way to get the money. Like I said, if you look, again,
We're not denying the need, but they want us to prove the need. You know, it's not like we're not saying you don't need it.
and when you say I'm
We're
fixated,
not saying we don't
and when you
want
say
it.
I'm fixated on the thing, first of all, I take direction from the full board, and that letter was the direction from the board, in terms of what we need to do. We're not trying to make this project not go, but we want to ensure that we get the most bang for the buck. I mean,
Okay.
you understand that?
Yes, I understand, but I'm just wondering, isn't there, other than through Penvest and, I mean,
I did a project in Canton Township, Malone Ridge. We went for a bond issue, but that's when the interest rates were extremely low. So when we did Malone Ridge in Canton Township, which is a multi-million-dollar project.
You might want to explain why. I'm just
Okay.
saying,
I understand
I'm
the
saying, but
bond.
not for her. But
All
I'm
right,
just saying
so
in
a
general,
bond,
like,
so we floated,
Go to private.
we floated a bond, we went and got, it's like getting a loan from a bank. We call it the bond. And so we received a bond and it paid, back then interest rates were next to nothing. So we received we received a bond, it was due. So that's the other, right now, interest rates are sky high. I can't go in that direction right now.
And
I'm just wondering with all the government things that are going on now, like, Rudy Judge and
Excuse me?
with
The-
the
his,
bill back better.
the
all
federal-
the infrastructure stuff, isn't there
Build
something
back, build
else?
better or
The
something.
federal, as my understanding, the federal infrastructure money that's been made available to the state of Pennsylvania has been allocated to PennDOT. You know, that money
But
is.
isn't there more then? More
There's
than
more
there
money
used to be?
in PennDOT available than ever.
Okay, well, I'm just saying.
But then you have, I'm saying, again, when you do funding for PennDOT, he'll tell you, it's like, I think it's 3 cycles now, or 4 cycles.
Yeah.
You try to figure out which cycle you can go, because the more people you have, the more
Competing.
entities, if you have applying for
Okay, you're
sewage.
competing for that.
Competing, so what you try to figure out, what I would do when I used to look at Freddie PennDOT, like Larry Gasparotto, he would tell me, you got so many applying this cycle, so many applying this cycle, and if you have less people applying in that cycle,
You have a better
there's a better
chance.
chance. So there's
More or
all
less.
these different nuances.
Gotcha.
Okay, I'm not trying to be difficult.
No,
And the
I'm
big-
following you, I
big
get it.
The big kicker with PennDOT, and I know I mentioned this earlier, but to finalize a funding offer with PennDOT, you have to have all of your environmental permits in hand, and that's not the case at this time for the town.
So they were, the environmental permits were,
You have to have all of your permits.
so what permits?
The MPDS permit, and the water quality management part two,
Were
which
those ever done prior to?
the MPDS was submitted in July of '22 and approved December of '23, and the DEP confirmed that there was never a water quality management part two permit issued.
That's in order to move forward.
That permit needs to be issued for the township to be
So
able
what
to
does
go to
that, what does that take?
It takes a complete design of the wastewater treatment plant, and it takes probably at least a 9-month review process. It's a lengthy permit.
I'm not an engineer.
It seems to me that someone has to look at a design that's feasible, and then push the process through. I mean, yeah,
And then-
we know it's gonna take
And
time.
let me explain to you one thing. This thing started, Central, I think, was in 2018.
That's right. January 2018.
Was there
January
anything,
15th, 2008.
was there anything done? You looked at the records that you have. Was anything done between that and 2023?
Well, they
That
completed
we just
the,
adjusted
they
the
completed the 537 process. That was done in 2019 and approved in January of 2020.
Was anything done after that?
They did the sewage facility planning module. That was in 2020 and 2021, and then the permit that we keep talking about was applied for in 2022.
Now, the original 537 done by Senate Engineering at the time, they, if I read it correctly, they had multiple places where they said the only feasible option is lift station at Petersburg. And then it was reworked by the township's engineer to add one more option.
Option
which
10.
was-
Option
And
10.
then
The treatment plant.
and then Senate Engineering wanted to get their grant money released from the LSA. And said that although we're aware that you had your engineer add one more option, recently, Peters Creek was looking at the option to take property on Lutz Road for development. And they're reaching out to all of their municipalities that participate in Peters Creek to see if they would, if they vote unanimously that they'll take the sewage outside of their service area, they're willing to take that that. And if that happens, we're hoping to circle back and say, well, if you do it for developers, why won't you do it for our residents? You know, our residents need it. You know, like if, in that particular piece of property that they're developing is, am I correct, like 75 or 80% into the service area, but there's an additional.
Well, 75% has to be in the service area.
So 75% of theirs is in the service area, but there is portions of it that's not, and so they've reached out. So we made a board vote that we were okay with that, hoping that all the other communities within PCSA would be okay with that, and that might open the door to making storage outside their service area. If we can get it to their service area by lift station, will they take it?
Let me ask you this question, if there's
And that was one of the options that Senate engineers, that was the only option that Senate engineering thought was feasible.
if there was a lift station, would there be as many grinder pumps if there was a lift station?
There'd be considerably less.
'Cause in this
There
project-
would not be grinder pumps. The Senate options looked at serving 47 houses. The Harshman option looked at serving 104 houses, with
Now,
many of
there
those
was the two
additional houses being
there
grinder.
was two lift station options as well. One lift station would take
Yeah.
care of all of the existing, another one would be an option for development in that area.
The Senate option requires 2 lift stations,
But no grinder pumps.
no grinder pumps.
And
Not
that's
that I-
about 10,000 a home that needs a grinder pump.
Yeah, that's a budget number, yeah.
Could you explain to, I know my experience, because I've done these before, could you explain your experience as an engineer regarding grinder pumps?
They're difficult, they're problematic. They're another mechanical piece of the system.
And they're.
They require operation, they require maintenance. There's electrical costs associated with the property owner. There's life cycle costs that are worth considering.
You're buying a Kia and putting it
So
in the
when
ground
you-
in your front yard.
Simple solution is have Peters Creek extend their coverage area to
And they-
Mingo Circle.
Yeah.
The cost
They-
will go like this.
And they
Right.
don't have to by their bylaws, they don't
Well,
have to.
I don't know, call
But-
Carmen Bartolotta.
Well, they have.
You know, you put some sort of pressure on
You
it.
can't fight an authority, they don't have to, you can work with them.
Well,
I
we'll
think
work with
and I was at one time, I believe that they were amicable to do that.
I think they
And
will
that there was a
be.
litigation that Union Township brought them to court over Finleyville Raymer Road. We brought them to court over, and we cost them almost $500,000 in that litigation. And then it got to be a very tenacious atmosphere between Union Township and Peters Creek, and we're trying to mend that. And we're hopeful the fact that they're even considering outside their service area in that Nottingham area.
So
Because
what,
that's hopeful for us that,
so what I'm trying to say is from my experience, what I've been told by different engineering firms, and I deal with banks in different places, try to stay away from grinder pumps, because the more moving parts you have, the more problems you have. So, am I right or wrong?
Absolutely, you know, most of the system could be gravity fed to a central location, then lifted from there.
and the problem with the grinder pump, like your wife said, that whole fixing a septic is costly. Tap fee, grinder pump fee, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you're gonna say $20,000, you're gonna tap into storage, and then you're gonna have a debt service to pay.
Yeah.
And it's like, they'll go, well, I don't want it
We
because
don't
I'm.
want that, right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's,
Nobody wants that.
Then if you have a power outage and you have a grinder pump, what happens?
Oh, we have a lot of power
and
outages,
the
believe
grinder,
me.
the grinder pump's gonna
I
be
have
another
Western
10,000.
Power on speed dial.
How long does the average grinder pump last?
So,
So in 10 years, you have
10
another
years or so.
$10,000,
Yeah.
another grinder pump.
We don't want that.
so that's, so you, it's sort of like,
Don't want that.
you have a lot of questions that we need to answer.
Okay.
And again,
And our documentation in 2022, or beginning of 2023, was all about free properties. That's all we knew about, was free properties. Everything that we found had to do with free properties. We answered the DEP about the consent order dealing with those free properties, because that's all we knew about. And then this board came in, we, went through all of the documentation and every question that you had brought up, and the timeline went through. to get another meeting with the DEP, but I don't know if they were, they don't wanna meet us. So, then we're looking at the options of how do we show the need without becoming big brother and like die testing people. So how do you prove to them we need money, we need sewage, we need money without die testing people and putting them in a position.
Well, you can
where
add my
they
property to
fail?
the list as a need.
Pardon?
You can add my property to the list as a need.
Well, they want us to do basically a survey of the area, showing need, which would mean die testing.
Well, I'm sure I'm not the only home that's on a holding tank at the moment.
No, not at all.
Well, that's the thing, everybody that's on a holding tank is in dire need.
And they are well aware of all the numbers of the holding tanks because they're registered with the DEP. They want more.
I have one quick question, because I know the board, I wouldn't want your job up there, I've been coming to these meetings for years. But a real quick question, everybody refers to this consent decree, okay, what exactly does it say? Because do you have to belong to the soils co-op? Their testing is so rigid, it's unbelievable. Or can you be like the other rural townships around here who don't? They say between buyer and seller, have a plumber come and dye test, do it. They don't run thousands of gallons of water and walk 4 miles down the stream to see if they can find dye. Okay? They're rigid, they're testing. Now, do you have to do that as a short-term thing? Because you already have at least 3 houses that I know that can't be sold. Or they were sold illegally, one on Route 88. Okay? So, why don't we come to a short-term solution, and then the long-term, I agree, work it out, see what we can do, and raise the money, and we're going to have to get sewage. But in the meantime, why penalize every person who tries to sell their home? Most of them are older, and they can't sell their houses.
And I did, when you had mentioned that, when you came to my business and mentioned that, I did bring it to him and said, can you get some more information for the board about what he's talking about? I was, I think it's used the word ignorant, but ignorant to what you were saying. I said, I'd like to know more about what Mr. Van Boris is saying here. Can you get me some more information for the board so we can look at that option? So I did bring it to him to get, I just don't know enough about what you were talking about.
TJ, with what the current place we are with this situation, say, how, and again, I'm just trying to give you some ideas. I'm not saying, I don't, okay, I'm just trying to give you some ideas. So, right now, and again, I've dealt with banks since my first sewage project back in 1980, something,
And I'll tell you, the
87,
DEP talked highly, they're like, we're glad to see you guys got banks, and maybe, you know,
That's what
they
you told me.
talk highly. And we pick banks in engineering because that's their thing, it's water and sewage, like, we pick them because that's their strong suit.
and that's who, and that's, I dealt with that late 1980s, first sewage. But with what I know, what you know, with the current situation regarding this plant, how long, can you give them some idea of like what it take, what it would take to start design, how long that would take?
Yeah.
How long it would take to get funding?
Yeah, I mean, assuming we were authorized to design a treatment plant, we have no files on a treatment plant design, so there's nothing to pick up and continue with at this point, nothing that I'm familiar with. So starting a new sewage treatment plant designed from scratch, you're probably looking 9 months maybe.
But what would
to
be better,
design.
a sewage plant or going to beach?
I mean, definitely conveyance to an existing authority would be the preferred approach, I would think. Assuming the costs are comparable, but, to do it, the issue is now that if you were to deviate back to the Hungry to Peters Creek, we would need to amend the 537 plan again, because that's not the recommended alternative at this point. So you'd have the planning step, you'd have the permitting step, and you'd have the construction.
Would you still need your FWS permit and the other permit if you're going to pump that way?
Yes.
Okay.
You need both those permits, whether you're doing a pump station or. Yeah.
And I don't wanna see we have so many agenda items, but maybe we have a workshop with strictly storage so that.
Beneficial land.
Real quick, he didn't answer that question.
What's that?
Do you have to use the soils co-op to do the testing? Or can you say, no, the township, anybody who does it, a plumber, whatever, are you mandated to use that?
You talk, we say social, are you talking about the sewage though?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
so we.
The soils co-op, whatever it's
Sewage,
called.
Washington County Sewage.
Yes.
So we have they have our DEP, delegation agreement. So to opt out of that, I think it's a 12-month to, I'm pretty sure our deal with that is a 12 or 16-month opt-out if we did consider it.
We have our, I don't know.
I,
Mr. Cassidy, you work for.
I just like to hear that because
It was-
other rural townships don't have it, and it's between the buyer and seller. I don't think you should be enforcing the DEP rules for them.
and we,
As a local
we gave
government.
that delegation to Washington County Storage Council back in the 70s.
What he's referring to is Green County. There's no sewage, there's no soil cooperation. And each township picks its own SEO.
No, Nottingham Township doesn't do testing through them, neither does Somerset.
But I'm saying, but you're saying rural, but I'm saying I represent more than half Green County. Each township and borough selects its own SEO. to
Storage enforcement officer.
Sewage
Okay.
enforcement officer. When you said rural, that's what you're referring to.
Okay.
Green County. Every place down there, they don't have that cooperative.
But they still have an SEO,
They
storage
still have a
enforcement
super-
officer, so it just would lead Washington County Storage Council into a different person, it would still be the same.
And they all use Tim Mill down in Green County.
So that it still would be a person, you don't opt out of just not doing it, you're just using.
They do
the
unless they've
SEO.
changed it recently. Nottingham is between buyer and seller.
I don't know, I mean, I know that answer.
Yes.
Okay, I guess we,
Okay, that's
all right.
good.
Did I answer all your questions satisfactorily?
Mr. Cassidy, where'd you go?
He's back in.
Oh, there you go. Is that an option? Have you ever heard of like not having a storage enforcement officer in the township?
No, every municipality has to have a sewage enforcement officer.
So Mr. Van Horn, that's your, he's from Washington County Storage Council, so I was asking him if any township has, that they don't have a storage enforcement officer.
Well,
Basically,
is that more
instead
recent?
of-
When did that happen? Because I sold a house in Nottingham Township 2 years ago. I went in, they said, no, you don't have to, it's a plumber, it's between you and the buyer.
It all depends on the township, if they have an ordinance for a dye test.
That's what I'm
If
saying.
they have an
If they
ordinance.
don't have an ordinance, then you don't have to do it, yes.
But it's in your best interest to do it.
I didn't say that. I'm just saying that places have it, and that we shouldn't be enforcing the rules for the DEP.
Okay,
Okay,
all right.
so, yeah, maybe, do you have another one of your business cards?
You can have mine.
The
I'll
reason
lose
I'm
video.
asking is, I can't, on the cuff, I can't say when we would have maybe a storage workshop or whatever, but if I can contact you and we have quite a few things coming up. And I will say, in this board here, what's it, June now? But we all became a board in January. We've had 3 states of emergencies, 2 tornadoes.
Yeah, I understand.
It's not that we're not looking at your problem. It's a big problem. It takes a lot to absorb, to learn about, to read about, you know, a lot.
Like I said, if you wanna come to our house, we can do it on the deck. Everybody's invited. Yeah, secretary to everybody. Anybody in this room.
Not me?
Don't invite them.
You're sitting up there, aren't you?
Okay. Number 5, motion to approve the meeting minutes of May 22nd, 2024. I just wanted to check one thing I had.
Is that all public comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, it was all of it. Did you see, Diane, did you see my email about correction on the meeting minutes?
I think I did.
All right.
I did it.
Then I want to make a motion to adopt the May 22nd, 2024 meeting minutes. So, Dupree, Hanford, all in favor? Aye. Police left? Is there still an officer here for the police report? Who might have got called? writing tickets to your car.
He's got yours too.
We can move on to, you guys have the fire department reports, the animal control. Superintendent is here. Hi. Wait.
Writing the tickets.
Where's Mitch?
Fresh air outside.
Where's Mitch at?
He's home. He's a little thing up there. I'll be back.
Oh,
Yeah. It's got a little-
is it his fault? Officer Mitch is our canine officer.
Alright, so May 2024 report summary. 129 calls for service, 16 traffic contacts, 10 vehicle accidents, 7 alarm calls, 2 driver-related arrests, 2 warrant services, 17 public service assists, 10 requests to assist the EMS and fire department, 4 check welfare requests, 4 reports of suspicious activity, 2 theft reports, 15 domestics and disturbances. The magistrate reported there were 6 criminal complaints filed, 3 non-traffic citations, 9 traffic citations, and there was 9 individuals arrested in the township for the following charges. 1 was a criminal trespass, 1 was criminal mischief, 2 of them were for possession of a controlled substance. 1 was a possession of drug paraphernalia, 1 burglary, 1 terroristic threats, 1 communications with 911 systems, 1 criminal use of a communication device, 2 possession with intent to deliver drug substance, and non-traffic charges, there was 2 disorderly conduct and 1 scattering of rubbish.
I have a question for you. So, a few residents had asked me about a post on Facebook about pictures of someone in South Park Mobile Estates going around. Was that person apprehended, you know? There was some sort of Nest camera photos on Facebook. And they had, like somebody outside their bedroom window, and then someone else said they saw them in the, and so I had a question from a resident, whether or not that person was apprehended.
I don't know. I remember a couple of times being called up to the apartments, but I don't know.
No, in, South Park.
Oh, is it the South Park Mobile Estates?
I'm
Oh,
sorry,
okay
did I say
then.
Unit Valley?
No, you might have said the Mobile Estates. I was thinking of the apartments.
Oh.
I don't know about that one.
Okay.
No.
Well, thank you. They were.
Do you guys have a copy of this?
We do have a, oh, that's that, right? Yeah.
Yep. Good.
Any other questions from the board members? Nope. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Engineer report.
Sure, thank you,
Take it away,
Seth.
Peter.
Our office submitted our engineer's report, Monday night. Should be in your board packets. I'll start with item number 1. I was told last week that the work is done at Veterans Park. So the next step for that process would be to close out that permit, submit the notice of termination to the NPDES permit. Is that something that the board would like our office to proceed with if the work is finished there?
The conservation fee.
With the
Yeah,
conservation district,
Termination,
yeah.
the finalizing, whatever.
The permit expires in December, but if the work's done, we can close it out ahead of time.
Yeah, I understand.
Okay. Going down the list, items 2 through, we'll say 7, are either on the agenda or I don't have much in the way of an update. My notes on those projects are in there. I did want to pass along that we submitted the Greenways Trails and Recreation Program grant application for Phase 2A and Phase 3 of the El Ramos Central Park between this meeting and our last meeting. We talked in great depth about the Mingo Circle Sewage Project. I think everybody here knows about as much as I do now about the project, so I'll skip that. So that moves us down to number 10, which is no update at this point. And then I did want to pass along to the board that, after, last month's authorization to start working on the slide repairs, I did meet with the geotechnical engineer, on the project sites for Pumpkin Center Road and for Airport Road. And I expect that they'll, provide us with a proposal that, we can take a look at. Their suggestions for taking some core borings at each of those, slide locations so that we can have a sense of what the repair strategy might look like, so.
So after the zoning board hearing, Representative Andrew Kuzma had approached me to say that the Speaker of the House had approached him and that he's interested in finding out from our state of emergency and our 2 tornadoes and our
Yeah.
prior state of emergency, what was going on in Union Township, what were the needs, as far as disaster relief. And they're doing appropriations, and he asked if we could get the figures for those sides so that,
Yeah.
he says that they're willing to look at it as a vote at the state level.
Okay.
Try to get us some funding, so
All
we can
right.
get the numbers.
Yeah, we did preliminary cost estimates already. So
As he stated,
absolutely.
we had a lot of news coverage, well, that's never happened in, South Hills before. Water, Mount Diamond's hot, they're looking at us, and it might be,
Do you want me to send that directly to Diana, to pass along?
I would
to-
send it to him with Diana CC for sure,
Who's
but
involved?
he's
Okay.
in the system, I think he's already here for it.
Okay. Yeah.
You okay with it?
Michelle, that's all I have on mine. Yeah, unless there's any questions.
No, is there any supervisor report?
Top off if you need, and I had to go. You got home.
You should never let them.
You want me to get the paddles? Now that I know you're okay, I wouldn't say that.
No, I just.
Please do.
Pledge, we need to set up some discussion as far as money meant on.
I think
Yes, sir.
that's on,
I asked to have that on the agenda as a discussion item tonight.
yeah.
Yeah, you're right, you did receive this final pay estimate, it's time to have that conversation.
Like the term details called out in this contract.
That's right. Yes, sir.
New business. Discussion and motion to authorize Banks and Engineering, Inc. to submit Growing Greener grant application for MS4 projects and approve a resolution for the same. MS4 is our stormwater management.
Yep.
So,
And we've talked about this a couple of times. This is a possible funding opportunity geared directly towards stormwater BMPs primarily. So this is an opportunity to have some of our PRP projects potentially funded with a 85% grant and 15% match.
When do you expect approval from the DEP on the submittal?
Which submittal, a grant application or?
And that's for the 4, 5, 6 jobs you have?
Yeah, I would, we submitted that back at the end of March. I would expect that we'll hear something quite soon. Yeah.
so anyone want to make a motion to authorize Banks to submit for the grant application?
I'll make that motion.
Arnold, seconds?
I'll second.
Suzanne? All in favor?
Aye.
Discussion and motion to approve or deny the land development plan application for the Aldrich intake improvement submitted by EAWC.
Sure.
It is, over
So-
in Grant,
It's my understanding the planning commission made a recommendation.
Yes. Yeah, made a recommendation to approve the land development, contingent upon satisfying all the comments presented by the conflict. And, just so everybody's clear, I'll step aside as township engineer for this moment. Some of you may know this, others may not, but Bankson was hired by Pennsylvania American Water Company to be our office was hired to be the design consultant for the raw water intake improvement project at Pennsylvania American Water Company's treatment plant in El Rema. We were hired to do that job 2 months before we were appointed as consulting engineer in January of 2023. So
So the township hired Leonard Story, something.
correct. So Union Township has appointed Leonard Smith Solar Engineering as the conflict engineer to step in and perform a review of the land development plan application so that we avoid a conflict of interest there where Bankson Engineers is reviewing work prepared by Bankson Engineers. So this gentleman sitting right here is Sean Wingrove. He's the principal of Leonard Smith Solar. He's performed the review of the land development plan application, and he prepared a comment letter to the planning commission. And our office has kind of gone back and forth with Sean and his office to work out the remaining comments so that we're consistent with the ordinance. So I did bring a copy of the site plan drawing. I'll give a brief overview of what we have going on here. The U.S. Army Corps of Engineers plans to remove the lock and dam in West Elizabeth. And as such, the water level in the river is going to drop by approximately 3.5 feet. Pennsylvania American wants to replace the raw water pumps in their intake building, which pumps the water from the river up to their treatment plant. So to do so, they're proposing to construct a brand new electrical building right outside their existing intake and install new raw water pumps, 6 new raw water pumps, and a building addition on I'll call it the front of the building, the landward side, opposite the river. So our office has put together the site plan and the necessary details for stormwater, parking, paving, lighting, etc., so that we can present a land development plan application. I think, Sean, feel free to jump in at any point here, but there were a couple comments that we were still going back and forth on. Our office sent a letter to Sean and to Diana earlier today explaining how we were going to address the remaining comments. And I think Sean's had a chance to read the letter, but I don't think it's completed a full review.
Sean, you completed, I guess there's correspondence between you and TJ?
Yes.
What's the status of it? What's your final?
So we did receive stuff this afternoon. We did publish a new letter for the meeting tonight. They looked through it. We think that zoning items have been satisfactorily addressed. Land development items we found, just administrative items, discussion on bond, developers agreement. Stormwater management report we looked through from an overview level this afternoon. It looks like they've addressed everything. We want to take one more thorough look through, publish a new letter of it. As we talked tonight, it appears that with the revisions today, plan complies with the township's zoning, saldo, and stormwater.
So you're recommending that the township approve? Yeah, and I said something, somebody said something today in the office, we said something.
Yes.
So it's just a draft, rough draft.
Right.
So you're making a motion to approve this with the township?
Recommendation.
I'm sorry, you're making, I'm sorry.
Don't be taking our job away.
So you're making a motion that the township, you're making a recommendation that the township approve the submission by Banks and Engineer, subject to all your recommendations.
Yeah, so long as it's still conditioned upon final review of the standard procedure.
So as I said, subject to your recommendation.
Correct.
Okay. Paying any and all costs.
May I ask a question real quick?
You got $5?
Yeah, come on now. Does the township have hours when you're allowed to work?
Like, they can't start like at 6 o'clock in the morning, can they? Do the township have hours?
If they do, I would like to turn in Pennsylvania American
Well,
Water.
that's what I'm
outside my
asking, because I
house
live
today.
down there, and it's a mess down there now. They shouldn't be able to start working at 5 or 6 and work till midnight.
Yeah.
I thought the township ordinance. Go ahead. I'm
So,
listening.
I agree with you.
I mean, I think there should be something in there.
So
that-
what, 8 o'clock in the morning?
Well, I don't, I'm just asking because it's a mess down there with the traffic and everything now.
7 to 9?
All we hear is Jake breaks and everything else going down there.
7 to 8?
Yeah, that's fine. I didn't know, I thought there was an ordinance, so that's why I'm
Wait a
asking.
minute, well, he's saying that we could put it in the development.
All right, we'll put it in motion and to develop.
Yeah,
So,
because, you
a
know,
motion to,
we got a lot of old people down there, don't forget, we like to get our
Early
sleep.
risers, but early.
No, but it does get bad. And, like, they allowed to work Saturday and Sunday. I mean, I'm just asking.
a motion to approve the land development plan application for the Aldrich intake improvements submitted by PAWC, subject to the final recommendations of LSSE, payment of any and all costs upon submission of a final bill within 30 days, and that any work not be performed by PAWC and or subcontractors from 8 p.m. to 7 a.m. the next morning, and not on Sundays.
Yeah, okay, that's, yeah.
or
Don't you think?
holidays. Like 4th of July.
Because when they poured,
I'm serious, people
Nationally
complain.
recognized holiday.
Well, I'm saying, well, you have national.
when they poured that power plant down there, they were at it constantly. And
Alright.
and there was nothing we could do because there was no, Yeah.
I did, but I also lived on the other side and knew exactly what they go through to get the project. So, it is what it is.
Yes, Steve.
There's two quick things I want to say. First, it is a question, I guess. All of this work will be done on private property. It's all private improvements. Everything will be completed by the water company, for the water company's benefit. There will be nothing dedicated to Union Township as part of the project. Does the Board of Supervisors, would you like a performance bond to be posted for private improvements?
That will be part of the development agreement.
If so, we'll have to provide Clement Smith with a cost estimate that they can review
If you
and
could do that.
deem to be satisfactory.
So we'll have a performance bond for the private improvements. And I'll give you my card and get back to you, okay?
And the second point I want to make, we did do infiltration testing on the site relative to stormwater management. The soil conditions are very sandy, they're riverbank. This project, by the way, will take place on the river side of the train tracks. There will be no construction taking place at the treatment plant.
well, I thought you said there was gonna be a building on this side of the.
All the construction will take place down at the intake building, which is right on the river. There won't
Okay, I
be any
misunderstood you. I thought you were
Yeah.
gonna build something on.
It'll all be on the river side of the
Okay.
tracks. Yeah.
on that Sunday, way down by the river, and
So
I'm
the,
just saying, it really wouldn't bother when I was way down there.
it should hopefully have a negligible impact on the residents down there in terms of
Yeah.
proximity. Back to the point about the stream, or the riverbanks, the soils are very sandy. We did infiltration testing. The results are incredibly high, abnormally high, which is gonna make it, I was talking with Sean about this today, very difficult to achieve the necessary dewatering time period as per the ordinance requirements. So my only other suggestion or request, Dennis, would be that Pennsylvania American be granted a waiver from the dewatering time requirement for stormwater management based on the infiltration test results that were observed in the
Can you
field.
put that request in line?
Certainly, yeah.
All right, so you understand the motion then?
Yeah, I do.
I'd like to make that motion,
Second.
so, Michelle, Terry second. All in favor? Aye.
When are you gonna turn the dam down?
The last estimate I heard was July. Yeah. I'm not sure. I haven't-
They said July or August.
July 10th is the first explosion.
Yeah. Pardon?
July 10th is the first time we're gonna blow part of it up.
Okay, thanks, Lynn.
There was a meeting held down there before that fire hall tonight on it.
C, I'd like to make a motion, well, I'd like to leave that on the table. I don't know if that takes a motion, but.
Just leave it on the
Leave it
table.
on the
Put
table.
it on the table.
So if the board's in agreement, we're going to D. Discussion and motion to hire blank, the operator position for the road crew pursuant to the terms and conditions of the Teamsters 205 collective bargaining agreement. Is there anybody that wishes to make a motion to hire somebody for the operator position of the road crew?
Good name.
I left it blank until someone makes a motion.
Is that
If
for the
somebody-
number of people, or
So,
are we hiring for one or two?
well,
One at a
that's to be
time.
seen. So we did interviews. We passed on, a short stack of people's names to our road superintendent after we interviewed them. We told him to narrow it down. And so he picked, and whether or not, now we're circling back to see if the board member wants to make a nomination. So we picked, I think, 5 or 6 to narrow it down for him because he was dealing with the tornado stuff. So he didn't participate in the interviews. We did the interviews and then we narrowed the field down. Then he did the final interview with a shorter number of people. He gave his options that he thought were suitable, and they're in your board packet. So, any motion to hire anybody for the road crew operator position pursuant to the terms and conditions of the Teamsters 205 collective bargaining agreement? So you'd like to make a motion to hire the John Lewis? That's John. Is there any second to,
I'll second that.
so. That was a motion by John, a second by Larry. All in favor? Aye. So, discussion and motion to hire blank for the operator position for the road crew pursuant to the terms and conditions of the 205 collective bargaining agreement.
I'd like to make a motion to table that till we hire a
There's a motion.
full-time.
So once there's a motion to table on the floor, you have to ask for a second, there's no discussion of that motion.
Sorry.
I'm saying, no, I'm saying.
That's an honest, all these rules.
I'll second.
Oh, second or tabling?
You make a motion to table, he made a motion to table, so there's nothing.
And then,
And now the question is there a second to table?
Yes, there's a second.
So John makes a second, there's no discussion on the motion, now you ask. Okay?
Okay, there's a motion to table and a second, that would be Larry and John. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. We're back to discussion and motion to hire blank, the operator position for the road crew pursuant to the terms and conditions of the Teamsters 205 collective bargaining agreement.
I make a motion.
So who do you make a motion? This David Safa? David, that was the second person in the packet. Is that what you're making a motion for?
Yes.
Is there discussion on that?
There's discussion.
There has to be a second
Second,
first.
there's discussion.
I'll wait for the second.
Okay. So, is there a second on the motion to hire David Safa
to the operator position of the road crew pursuant to the terms and conditions of the Teamsters 205 collective bargaining agreement.
I'll second it.
There's discussion on the motion.
I think we need to hire a treasurer, accountant before we hire another road worker. We have no idea where we stand financially. We have major impacts to a budget was based on information from 23, 22, which would be nebulous at best. We need to hire an accountant first before we hire a fifth member of the road crew.
You have a person ready for the accountant position?
What's that, Carl? I'm sorry.
I said, do you have a person ready for that?
No, I don't, but we need a little effort by the board to do
We
so.
have a supervisor with part of the crew.
We got 4 guys, Carl, we just hired a guy. Okay? There's no emergencies out there. We don't know where we stand financially at all. That's where I'm coming from. So we table the thing for a while, we find out where our dollars are at. We have an obligation to these people sitting out there financially.
I feel pretty strong about how I feel we are financially, and I believe that we have a lot of work to do and a very limited crew to do it. We took the investment into a road superintendent to run a crew. At best, he has 1 person or no people, 50% of the time. You don't have flaggers to put them in the ground.
Well, they don't get bad, they'll be raises and generations. But go ahead, I'm just being honest with you. I think we need to determine where we stand financially.
We definitely need to determine where we are.
Before we do any,
But I mean, we have one retiring. How many days does he work days?
he has roughly
No,
about
he
17 or
retires in
18,
August.
roughly 17 work days left, I
Well,
think.
So you manage around that. Not everything needs his people. I'm not criticizing Ken, I think he does a good job for us. But right now, I think the financial state of the township is more important than hiring another guy. That's a $50,000 bill for starting in July.
But
Add it up.
you can't get the work done without an
Yeah,
employee.
but there's not,
We bought,
I'm not buying in on that, we
I
can't
get it,
get
but we
things done.
bought a C can for a pitcher's mound. We bought a pitcher's mound. We don't have
Hey.
enough guys to get the job done.
Well,
There's a lot of work to do. We got roadside because they don't have cross
we
drains.
can't do
We
that
have
until the
drainage.
engineering's done. That'll
We
be
can
at
get
least
the
a month
other
and a
cross
half, 2
drains
months.
clean so that it doesn't continue to happen.
Well,
But we
I'll
don't,
debate that with you another time.
Why don't you hire 2 part-timers? That way,
so we have a motion
when you
on
don't
the,
need them, you
Mr.
can cut the
We
time
have a
down.
motion on the table, I'm sorry.
It don't matter, you don't care.
So,
She got somebody in mind, she wants.
so we have
Asshole.
Get yours.
first by, please, in the audience. We have a motion by Carl and a second by Suzanne, I believe.
It really is.
All in favor? That's for motion to hire David Safa. Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye,
Nay.
or nay.
Okay, discussion and motion to approve Veterans Park.
The motion died.
Discussion and motion to approve Veterans Park Ball Field Use Agreement. That is here. So, this is for the Union Finley Baseball League. Yep, we love baseball. So, since we are new to this baseball league renting out park kind of thing, we had to do an agreement, get their insurance, do a request form for when they need to use the park, and debate if we're gonna charge, what we're gonna charge, if we're gonna charge. And so Mingo's office drew up an agreement. The pricing is blank because we haven't. So, we have to do this agreement to finalize. We allowed them to use the
agreement, Michelle, we're talking about,
This, yeah,
or
this.
the rates?
Well, the agreement has a blank here if we're gonna charge.
Okay.
If we're, so it's just blank. The second piece of paper is an example of Peters Township's scheduling thing. So this isn't ours, this might have pricing, but it was a suggestion from the staff that we get a schedule request just so it coincides with birthday parties, so she put a stamp in here. There's we know when their games are, but tell them when they would like to use it for practice or whatever, so. Just so that there's not two people using the field at the same time, it was a suggestion of the staff to do a schedule, so she put a sample in here at Peters Township. Did everybody get a chance to look at the agreement? Did you make plans with the president or a signer or whatever, come down tomorrow or whatever?
Not tomorrow, she's on vacation, so.
Okay, but before the next game or whatever. Also, are they, do you know if they wish to use the concession stand or
I
do they
believe they
wish
do.
to use the concession stand? So that's part of it as well. The restrooms, yeah, I just didn't know how much they were just using the field of restrooms.
We take a $200 deposit for the use of the restrooms.
Because they could lose the keys and that's what it costs to replace all the
Right.
keys, yeah. Does anybody have any feeling about,
Did they do that survey you talked about going around?
they did, so they did, we got an answer back, I believe, from Bethel Park and Peters Township, did we get anything from anyone else? I saw Bethel Park and Peters Township answers, and they were very weird, like they
Yeah.
were totally different from each other.
One of
had
them,
an hourly
one of them
schedule.
charged by the head, like how many people are on the team.
One had an hourly
One
even
had
for
an hourly,
practices.
and one had an
I
overall
will
rate.
tell you that they prepped the field. Both of them that had the hour, you know, they prepped the field for the team, which we're not gonna be doing.
Municipal workers.
Apparently. I could be the right word, I don't know. But part of the deal was they prepped the field for, that's another reason for their request form, is so they can prep the field when it's gonna be used. So, I believe Mr. Barkey had agreed to prepping it for
And
them.
that's-
Like, the team's gonna prep it for themselves. and
That's what
like,
you said that Kenny and I had a meeting with them several months ago.
But there's no anticipation from them that we're prepping the field when they come.
Right.
They're either gonna do it or it's gonna be unprepped.
I didn't have that conversation with him, so I
Okay,
can't
that
answer
just
that
sounds-
question.
We just cut the grass.
Yeah, which we did before.
Right.
So, can you give me a, me and Suzanne did talk about this the other day. Trying to figure out like, what would be reasonable, what would be, I don't know, I didn't have any kids that played softball, if they played in other fields, if they, I thought field was a little bit stout, I thought it was a little bit.
What do you recommend?
Cost, there's a cost associated with cleaning up the bathrooms, the concession stand, things of that nature.
And the agreement itself,
Yeah.
obviously.
I wanted almost like,
I don't know.
wanted almost like $50 a game.
$50 a use, that's practice, and it is cheap, but it was for, they charge us for practicing too. When they're not using the concession stand, when they're not using the bathrooms, when they're not. Then, me and Suzanne looked at that there was 5 games after yesterday's. That's 5 games. That's it, at that field.
At that field.
There's 5 games.
Yeah, they have a wait list.
So there was yesterday's game, and then there's only 5 games. I don't know how many often they practice.
And they go try for practice.
No, I'm just saying, it was 5 games.
I've seen people down there using it, but I didn't see any adults. They were just.
Yeah, they were
playing
using the
on it.
concession stand, the bathrooms.
So I don't know.
And again, we were spitballing, if it was $50 a game, it would be $250. That would cover the cost of
That would cover
his,
the cleaning costs.
it would
How
cover
do
the
you
cost
two
of
ladies want to talk? How about?
We were, we don't wanna make money on, we don't wanna make money on them at any
Right,
way.
there's a cost associated.
There's a cost.
I agree.
We also, I think I'm gonna put it on the next agenda if the board's okay with it, to start getting a recreation thing.
Good idea.
Yeah.
That we shouldn't be the ones determining this, we should have a full-blown recreational board that is willing to do fundraisers, keep their own till, their own money, their own, because there was a lot of things that got carried around, like putting names of businesses on the fence, but we can't do that, that's just mixing in the general fund, we need a rec board to
I
do
agree.
that.
We did it at, St. Francis. Solar field.
I
The
will
only-
tell you, I attended the game on, I think it's a very, very
I will tell you, I went for the hot dogs and there wasn't any. I told him I was gonna go down and support the team by buying a couple hot dogs and come back, cause I don't watch baseball,
Yeah,
but.
you go to the ball game.
But I went there and there was they didn't have the keys to the concession stand because she's on vacation and they didn't come down to get the keys.
Well, anyhow, whatever you decide, I don't know, $50 something.
If it was $50 a game,
I
it'd
think
be,
$50 a game is,
there's 5 games,
Yeah.
does that cover the cost of
but I
getting the
don't think
agreement
that's what
and then?
they practice.
No.
What does
I don't think
soccer
so.
people pay?
So they don't use they got their own porta potties up above and
That's
so
They
it's a
take
different,
them out.
yeah. So we were just thinking, how much would it cost to clean to keep the bathrooms for parties and that? Because I don't think we should keep their deposit because some kids with dirt on their feet with it. I don't consider that
I agree.
being
It's
messy.
the other stuff
We
that I
have to
see.
clean it for
Yeah.
the parties, like the cleaning that occurs from the use of bathrooms, that you wouldn't keep their deposit because it's not really, they're not neglecting. So, I don't know.
I'm
We
good with the
spitball.
50.
We go with the 50, so that would be a total, because this contract only has a rate for the year. So 50 times the 5, $250. That'll cost us contract and the cleaning of the bathrooms.
Let's see what our experience is. It has to be.
Well, I think that it'll be out of our hands. I'm hoping that we have a rec board that determines how much it costs.
Here's what I'll do, I'll pay the $250.
You'll pay the $250?
I'll send you a check for $250 for this amount, wherever it's leaving.
Okay, so it's $250 pays by Dennis. Okay, so I make a motion that we charge them $250 paid for by Dennis Mingo.
Diane, you said that
We should have made it 500.
He was gonna do
Doggone it.
This is the first year we want to encourage other teams to.
The only reason we thought about charging anything at all is that's how you buy a new refrigerator, that's how you give them a nice place to play. You have to upkeep that nice place, get people to clean the bathrooms, get people, but Dennis is fine.
I did hear multiple comments about what a nice field it was too.
Yeah, I was only there for a minute or two once I found out there wasn't hot dogs, but they were, those kids were proud to play on that field.
Are the kids from township, is it spread all over?
It's the Union Finley League.
Yeah, they're toxic.
There's different
It's
leagues
just
and
like, I'm
different.
gonna bring something up, you're gonna kick it down, just like the fire hall, I give the fire hall free to Ringgold, I give it free to TJ when they wanna have something. You know, I don't think kids, organizations like that, if it's for the township, should have to pay anything.
Well,
I mean, and again, I know there's an
And
upkeep,
again,
I
he's picking up
understand
the
that.
tab, so
I mean-
if they're not paying anything.
I understand there's an
I
upkeep.
agree with you. My kids, we never paid anything,
Right.
but we did a lot of things. We built the concession stand for baseball. I was there for a whole summer building dugouts
Right.
with the Martins.
I know things are different now.
This baseball field cost the township $500,000 in the
Okay.
last 3
Must be a
years.
little
So it's a
something to keep it
$500,000 baseball field with no grants attached, so
There were grants, weren't there?
there were no grants for
Nope, they
Veterans Park.
lost it. They did lose something.
There was not a grant addressed for Veterans Park at all, to my knowledge, anybody's knowledge, not one grant.
No, it's done.
Done.
We'll see what we can do with the contract.
Can I tell the board something real quick?
No,
Yes, Tara
No.
Barkey said it was beautiful and thank
tell
you.
them after the
Thank you.
meeting.
Michelle, who seconded that? Did anybody?
I think everybody yelled at one time,
I
so
couldn't tell.
I made the motion, we'll give it to Larry, I think was the second.
Yeah, it was.
And
Yes.
so, and then we were all in favor, correct? Aye.
Yes.
Oh, that's good.
Aye.
$500 it was, by the way.
No, just tell the answer, just tell the answer, that's all.
Yeah, just jack it up a little bit more.
That,
250 right now.
just send an email to
Just wanna
Nancy.
make sure.
Send an email to Nancy, you know.
Discussion and motion to close the quote streetlight account at Brentwood Savings Bank. So, there's $38,000 in the streetlight account in Brentwood Savings Bank. It has been sitting dormant since 2019. When it moved over to Brentwood Bank, the deposit was set up to, all of the deposit for the tax collector collects that tax, is set up to go into the general fund. And all of the direct withdrawals for all of those streetlight accounts have been coming out of the general fund since 2020 when that account was, so that money just sits there and sits there and sits there and sits there. Because the money coming in ain't going in that account, and the money coming out ain't going in that account. So, the way our treasurer has it, she has the bills for the streetlights that you get direct withdrawal codified in her QuickBooks to show that they're for streetlights. And she has the deposit codified that it's coming in for streetlights, so she can audit and she's going to give us a report by the end of this year of whether or not the streetlight tax is covering all of the streetlight bills, which was unable to determine prior to her doing that. So she would like approval of the board or consideration of the board rather than this $38,000 sitting there and nothing coming in, nothing coming out. To just put that in it was collected for streetlights in 2019, but when they moved to Brentwood Bank, so it was streetlight tax put into an account, then moved to Brentwood Bank, then nothing moves in or out of that account. If you guys want to consider that or talk to her more about it, we can table it and put it on the next. But she'd like to know, it would make it easier for auditing, not to have to audit an account that's had no movement since 2019.
I'm not gonna make any comments, so.
Okay. So, if you guys feel you would like to.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. So, he made the motion, Larry made the motion to close out the streetlight account at Brentwood Bank and move it to the general fund. I'd like to second that.
Second that.
Okay, Larry, Carl would like to second that. Larry made the motion, Carl second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, discussion and motion to approve the resolution regarding the Alrima Fire Department zones.
Excuse me, may I say something?
Oh,
I
here.
would check under Act 511 to see whether you're required to hold a separate streetlight account.
She did check that.
And you're
She
permitted?
did. So she said as long as they're codified, like,
Documented towards, on a chart of
documented,
accounts.
yeah, and what hasn't about, I don't know how, so in 2019, when that money was put in there, and then it was moved to this account in Brentwood, they paid the streetlights out of the general fund. It should have been picked up on an audit, because it didn't come from the taxes that were collected for streetlights. So, she did check on that.
Yeah, Act 511 dictates what you do with Act 511 monies that are collected.
Yeah, and I don't know how it didn't get picked up that it was collected and put into an account, and then because they moved over to Brentwood Bank, they made the automatic withdrawal of streetlights coming out of the general fund.
It was always, though, when those deposits were always made, there was always documentation as to what streetlight account that referred to. So it should have all along been documented to streetlights.
I think it was probably the change of treasurers and the change of banks at the exact same time in February of 2020 that, yeah.
20.
Yeah. But I will double check. But, yeah. So, the Alrima Fire Department. So, am I correct, Mr. Seiler, that the Alrima Fire Department has been provided this resolution? They haven't been? I thought you had provided it. Would you like a quick, there's others like,
Yeah.
would you like a quick copy of this
Yeah, that's
resolution?
fine.
Let me go. I'm gonna go make a copy. You guys can talk about the resolution while I'm making him a copy.
I make a motion that we pass the thing.
You can explain maybe to the residents.
So the Monday following the tornado.
Yes, speak up.
The Monday following the tornado, we met with, Lorraine Fire Department, Mingo Fire Department, Washington County Public Safety, and we discussed the dividing of the township up into, fire areas for coverage by Finleyville, fire areas covered by the two fire chiefs. There are 6 fire districts.
This is yours, this is
in
theirs, you want the
the
Finleyville one,
township.
correct?
And, 2 fire chiefs.
Thank you.
Proposed that Lorraine would be responsible for districts 1, 2, and 3, and Finleyville 4, 5, and 6. And basically, the division line is Route 43.
What is it?
Route 43,
Alright.
and, then we talked about how we were going to proceed with that, and that's what you're seeing here, would be contingent on each of the fire departments, signing an agreement, and, then also they would be responsible for getting together with the county and doing their gun cards, and, a few other stipulations I'm sure we'll talk about. Is that sufficient?
So what he's saying is that the township, I thought you called the resolution for tonight's meeting, I apologize. But that resolution says that you folks will be in charge of zones 1, it's like 1, 2, and 3. There's a bunch of other numbers at the end of it, but
4, 5, and 6 for Finleyville, and 1, 2,
You
and
guys
3.
discuss. Yeah.
is that okay with you then?
Yeah, we all sat down, that's what we discussed.
Is that meeting
Yeah.
with Jerry Coleman?
Yeah, that was all discussed between us and Finleyville.
Correct.
In that meeting with Jerry Coleman and Washington County, so.
You're satisfied with that?
It's pretty much split it in half, you know.
Okay.
But we'll both still be on all the calls, you know.
Yeah, because the whole
Yeah.
service,
Nothing's gonna change. On my end.
nothing's gonna change.
Yeah, and we've always had both.
Yeah.
There have been a time that both people weren't. But it just would put on paper that the primary would be, it would actually make everybody's primary closer to their house. But it
Yeah.
doesn't matter which area that your primary will be, which is a huge difference in your insurance. So it will actually help, even though that both are good fire departments, both will be responding to all fires, it's just on paperwork for insurance readings and stuff, your primary will be closer to the house, benefiting both ends of the community.
And then hopefully, once this is all up, this resolution, we will forward it all to ISO, and then ISO can finish doing their thing.
So, when do we, so I'm guessing, does this board feel that by our next meeting, we can vote on the contract?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So, do the resolution to do this, Nagel's office works on the 2 contracts, we work with the fire department.
Right.
I thought I already sent over a draft agreement.
You sent draft over, but we have to work,
I didn't think I looked at the details.
we'll work with the details.
You already know, so I sent you one check.
Yeah, and it was just drafts. So what maybe to do, you guys look it over, maybe give it to them, they can look it over and have a meeting.
Can we do the resolution?
How would you do the resolution?
Absolutely, we're doing the resolution tonight. And then, we'll be voting on the contract. Hopefully if the negotiations
Yeah, it'll go.
go well. And wait, so when it comes to Finleyville Fire Department's, contract, do we negotiate, do we do that with Finleyville or the fire department?
I would do that with fire,
Both.
with the
Okay.
fire department.
With the fire department, okay. I just knew with Monongahela Police, we had to deal with.
Well, because Monongahela Police Department is a part of the city.
I get it, but I know that they have Finleyville has a contract with Nottingham for a portion of Nottingham. And they participated in split, they have a split participation.
So that's something we can discuss with you, but right now, what we need to do is make a motion.
Okay.
to approve
Let's
that
do the
resolution.
So, is there a motion to approve the resolution regarding the zones for Finneyville Orema Fire Department?
I'll make the motion.
So, the only discussion is that, the chief from Orema seems to be good with the resolution as it stands as well. So, all in favor? Aye. Discussion and motion to approve the resolution regarding the Finleyville Fire Department zones. That's 4, 5, and 6.
Yes. 4, 5, 6.
I'll make that motion.
So, I think, although soft, I think John was before you. So Suzanne made the motion, John made the second. Any discussion on that one? No,
As far
we're
as
good?
the SWIFT and all that stuff, that can work.
Yes, so, we said that a minute ago. We just said that. So, all in favor?
Aye.
Discussion and motion to enter into an environmental service agreement with Latterly?
How do you say that?
How do you say that? Latterly? How do you say it?
Literally.
Literally. How do you say it, Dave?
I don't know, I don't profess to know, but I would say letter L.
Letter L. Okay. Letterle and Associates Inc. So this is regarding your underground holding tank that we had a leak in roughly a month ago that we pumped out.
April 3rd or something. is when they
April 3rd.
detected it.
And so,
This is a fuel tank, not a whole.
I'm sorry, fuel
Yeah,
tank. It's the
gasoline.
gasoline tank out there. It was discovered or suspected that there was a leak. They then pumped the gasoline out and hauled it away. And now we are on an environmental service agreement for testing for see if there was contamination in the
Yeah.
soil and where at and how much and
DEP
whatnot.
protocol for a
So-
underground tank.
This agreement would be to see it, well, assumingly there's a leak, but if there's a leak, how substantial the leak, how far out the leak, core testing, correct?
Correct.
Core test?
And I've dealt with the firm, it's a good firm, by the
Yeah, and I talked to DEP about them, they come reputable, the pricing's acceptable by DEP. There's a $5,000, what's what I'm looking for? Deduct, if the balance will be picked up by that. We got in the fund at the right time, that insurance fund for underground storage tank will pick up anything. As long as we follow protocol properly, our pricing's not outrageous, they'll pay any difference over the $5,000. So we're saving some money there.
There was one email that was referencing that there might need to be 3 bids for some sort of money. Is that for like the next step or is that for this step?
We need to do the surveillance, first, and that's for laterally.
So the 3 bids is for cleanup?
Yeah, and then that tells you how extensive the contamination was, if any. And then we have a plan to go forward, but that'll be a conversation we'll have to have, whether we go.
We may in the end wanna pull that tank out, clean up the whole area, go
Possibility.
above ground.
It depends on how bad the leak is. If it's bad, we're gonna probably pull it out, maybe better in the long run.
Yeah, clean up the whole site area and put it above
Yeah,
ground tank.
but that's not cheap work, so we could, there'll be some time involved to get multiple pricing, get a good plan of attack, so all those little things that you need to do, so you execute the contract in an expeditious way. But that's down the road after we get the test results.
So This is a testing that the DEP requirement due to the fact that there is a assumed leak in that tank.
Well, we lost volume in the tank, so we did something.
We did something.
Yeah.
Was someone filling up their gas tank?
That was
There was a
easy.
large accident in the back.
I was sort of hoping that was the case, it's only
Yeah.
still gas, but.
Cause that's a lot cheaper.
Yeah,
Filling
so-
gas would be a lot cheaper.
Just make a motion to approve the agreement between the township and, how do you say it, letter lead,
Letter lead. I mean, it has the word letter in it, and then LE, so letter lead.
Letter L.
I'll make that one.
Okay, so
I'll second.
Carl made the motion, Suzanne second. Is there anybody else that needs a discussion on this item?
I'll contact the DEP too Friday, tell them the status. I talked to a woman up there. She's our contact, so I'll make sure DEP knows how to move it.
Well, Karen used to know our old contact. She got real close with them. Remember Karen, the DEP contact?
Oh, yeah.
Jeff something or other.
Ben. It's Ben.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I remember that
Because the
guy's
spill
name.
with the spill containment thing, we had, it was after the board vacated and Karen was our volunteer dealing with a DEP violation on this very tank. Ben came cracking, like poor Karen on her first day volunteering for such a DEP.
Well, I calmed him down.
He did
so.
calm him down. He was tired of it. He said it was going on for months and he was tired of excuses and Karen. That'll serve you right for volunteering. So we have Carl made the motion, Suzanne seconded, all in favor? Aye. This is a sticky one. Oh, by the way, I did it again. I would like to say, since this one's gonna involve Tammy, Diana made me aware that I did not introduce Tammy at the last meeting. She wrote me a post-it, and I still didn't do it. So I would like to introduce Tammy Stetson, our zoning and code building inspector from McMillan. So, sorry it's so late in the game, but I got to an agenda item that involved her, then I remembered. So, discussion and motion to rescind a previous board motion regarding 123 Houston Run Road, holding tank and temporary occupancy permit. This is going all the way back to 2021 when I was in the audience. Gentleman bought a house and he wanted a temporary occupancy permit while he put in a holding tank over on Houston Run Road. So he's buying a house, he was at the podium, and they entered into a temporary holding tank agreement, not a temporary occupancy permit with him, and he put roughly $13,000 in an escrow required by Sweat Law Firm. He had a certain amount of time, I guess, to put in the holding tank and then enter into a permanent occupancy permit and get his escrow money back. He came to the township mid last year, said that he had put in his holding tank and he wanted his escrow back and his permanent occupancy permit. In calling Washington County Storage Council to inspect to make sure that their tank was inspected and we can give them an occupancy permit. They went for the location and there wasn't a holding tank. So he installed a full-blown septic. Problem was he had failed a perk test prior to that, so that wasn't really an option for him on Eastern Run Road. And so we couldn't give him that. We were working out the details of what we were gonna do about getting him into a permanent occupancy permit and getting his money back, or what was gonna happen there, and the house burned down from the news. So, Mr. Bailey, Chief Bailey.
Yes.
Is that entire structure gone?
Yeah, it's already, we already tore it down to the moment.
It was,
So,
it
there
was,
is,
it was a big, it was a two apartment, it was like an apartment building with two.
which he never stated when he got into that agreement, by the way, and no wonder he didn't put in a holding tank, because he'd probably be entering a lot more often with two residents going into one holding tank would have been. So, he did the drawings, he did the submittals, he did everything for the holding tank, but then didn't put the holding tank in, but that's all null and void, because he can never get a occupancy permit because the house is demolished, and I believe, if I'm correct, Kim, he put in for a demolition permit?
He put in for an electrical permit for the garage.
Did he, so he has not got a demolition permit for the house?
Correct.
So, okay, that's another story. Nonetheless, the first motion on this is to rescind the old board's motion to give him his escrow back based on a permanent occupancy permit that now no longer can be acquired. So that's this first motion. The next one's gonna be discussing what we do from there about getting his money back. So I'd like to make a motion to rescind the old board's well, it's the board's motion a year ago. To give him his escrow back based on the permanent occupancy. So I'm gonna make that motion.
Second.
Larry seconds it. All in favor?
Aye.
So, the next agenda item is approve closing out Mr. Koning's escrow dealing with 123 Houston Run Road. Now, so there's no demolition permit has been applied for, and there is still a garage on the property. I talked to Mr. Cassidy from County County Council before the meeting started, and I asked him if it was an option that we could close that out, give him his escrow back under the condition of we stop any water service to that property. I can't say the garage does or does not have a bathroom, and it does or does not need storage, but if it doesn't have water, he doesn't need sewage, he can get his $13,000 back. But, I don't know what our options are. I would think if the house was down, we would have got a demolition permit not to pay taxes on the house anymore.
He didn't do that at all.
Is
So
not
basically, the house still exists on paper.
on paper, paper out. So, and he asked for an electric permit that's in that garage. So there would be some concerns whether or not that would be temporary housing with no sewage.
What does the ordinance say about accessory structures?
Yeah, that's the other concern. You can't have an accessory structure without a primary structure.
That would be a zoning issue.
There's all kinds of unique situations here. There's all kinds of unique situations. I feel bad about his $13,000, and I feel he didn't do what he said he was gonna do, or got permitted to do.
So you can't have an accessory without
But it didn't get burned down when the house got burned down. He had built the accessory.
It was already existing, it was already a garage.
Yeah, but
The garage that was there, it's detached from the building, there's like a probably good 100 feet that it's over here.
That's why it didn't burn
Yeah,
down.
it didn't burn, there was no fire damage stuff, and that's what it was.
So then, another issue.
So it's existing, but I don't know if he has water to that garage or not. Or the board consider, or is it a possibility that if he cuts any PA American water to that property, we can give him his money back for his escrow holding that he no longer needs because his house burned down.
Good option.
I asked him if he had water going into the house, and he said no, he said there was no bathroom. Tammy's inspector went down and did not see evidence.
And if he doesn't have any water service to the property, then there'd be no reason to need storage, whether he did it right, he did it wrong, he got hurt. I just feel bad we're holding someone's $13,000. He went through a fire for himself.
So he made an application for electric connection, is that right, Jen?
Electrical inspection.
Electrical inspection. And did you speak to him about what he plans to do with the garage, with the electric?
When my inspector went to do the electrical inspection, he has construction equipment in there. There didn't appear to be anything for living space at all.
So we can circle back to our capacity on this. He said that was an option, but we still have water service today. And we're not violating.
Right, he doesn't have EAWC connection.
Well, he would still have it there from his burned down house, but if we could do something conditioned upon him disconnecting any water service to that property at all.
To the primary residence.
To that property at all.
There's, the primary residence is gone, so
Right.
So there's a site is for a connection to the garage.
Once we in there, you can turn the curbs off.
If he's willing, I mean, this is the option to try to, if he says he doesn't have water, he just has some construction equipment, I think there's no problem with that. That will solve his problem of for holding his money.
Does he have a holding tank for the garage?
No. There was a failing septic going in the river when he bought the property, and he got perk tested, he couldn't put in a septic. So he came to the township back in 2021 before I was on the board to get to get a temporary occupancy permit while getting a holding tank installed.
So he wants reimbursed so many thousands of dollars, correct?
Yes, although he didn't put in the holding tank, and although he didn't get inspected for the septic, he decided to put in regardless of the fact he didn't pass the perk
So if you
test.
wanna make a motion to reimburse him, was it 13,000 you said or something?
It's roughly, whatever his escrow is minus,
A motion to reimburse this gentleman the remaining escrow monies, subject to the following conditions. One, that all costs incurred by the township be paid from that escrow. Anything involving that property. Two, that basically that he be advised in writing that he is not to use, that structure cannot be used without a holding tank. That's been approved by WCS.
what about the demolition permit?
And three, it would make sense for him to do it because.
He's gonna pay taxes on a building that's not there anymore.
Or three, that he makes an application for a demolition permit with the township within June 20th, June 12th or something, by July 12th. Okay?
Give his money back.
I've never seen that type of situation.
It's been one, if I was him, I'd sell the property
But
out there anyway.
You'd want to have the demolition to take his property off the
It only, I think it only, how long ago did that happen?
Probably about a month and a half ago.
That's long
So
enough. I mean, he had time to come in for electrical permit.
So if you make the demolitions approved, then I suggest having Diana send you that letter by certified mail if you have the address.
So, one of those conditions on that motion was the structure can't be used without a holding tank?
Because he has possible water. I'm going to assume if you have a garage there, how do you clean up or
Well,
whatever?
that's why we were saying storage facility of some sort to the property.
We had a situation that people had that shed, and they were living there. I'm looking at Tammy, this one.
We have a yurt on Stone
No, I
Church.
have one in Drummond though, yeah.
They were using the
There's a
shed, to live in the shed. They didn't have. I sold the same situation. Does that make sense?
Yes, because if you got a holding tank permit and put it in, and you had the water turned back on, you'd have to go through a change of use with zoning for it to be a house, for him to live in it. If you wanted to live in it, and you have to meet the building code.
But I've seen people live in garages.
Yes.
Live in sheds.
It's hard to live there if they don't have water service.
I've seen things you never want to see before. You understand what I'm saying, Tammy?
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
What a string of bad luck she's had. She's the one that says she wants to go quicker.
Is there a motion?
There's a motion, I got it. Motion. Anyone want a second?
Second.
Okay. So, I made the motion, Carl second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion and discussion and possible motion regarding the 2024 road aggregates bid. So, with the ad out, we got one bid.
not open. I reached out to Mingo's office, what we could do here if we could possibly reach out to people that had bid in the past, if we didn't open this yet, and he said no, because we had a time frame and a thing on the bid.
You already advertised, you have to open it up.
So, here you go. So we can reject the bid and circle back and actually re-advertise.
Yeah, did you send a list of different people that do the aggregates, Diane?
Did I send a list to the people?
No, someplace where they have a list of people that they deal with.
We just started a list that, she wasn't the person that did this.
Alright, so this is still,
We have since, me and Diane have since have looked up through the files of people that did aggregate bids in the past and compiled a list of if we choose to re-advertise and contact them. But we have one bid.
This is from Bullskin Stone and Lime LLC from Latrobe. It's signed and sealed. Go ahead.
If we choose not to, is there a requirement for liquid fuels allocations for things to have more than one bid?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I'm just making sure, I didn't know either.
Not that I'm aware of. Alright, because sometimes you'll have one fuel bid for one company.
Okay.
So they have, it's signed and sealed. There's a 10% bid bond. So, I guess you have 9 different items you advertise for.
We did.
You have 100 tons of number 8, 1B road aggregates. You like your stuff delivered, right? You don't want to pick it up, do you?
Not in Latrobe, we don't.
Alright, just make sure. So the total for 100 tons is 49.71 per unit. Total is 4,971. 200 tons of number 2A aggregates. Delivered is 23.71. Total is $4,742. 200 tons of number 57s. Unit 29.71. Total $5,942. $5,942. 250 tons of number 67s. 30.71 unit. Total $6,142. 200 tons of number 4. 30.21 per unit. Total is $6,042. 6042. Rock lining, R4 rock, 50 tons of R4 rock lining, riprap, 31.71 delivered, total 1585.50. Number 50 tons of number R6 rock, riprap, 34.71, total 1,735.50. There's no bid for the 12-inch diameter corrugated pipe, smooth wall interior, and there's no bid for 15-inch diameter corrugated plastic pipe, smooth wall interior. So you have no bids at all.
And just so the audience knows, it's a bid up to those amounts. Just so like, it's not like we're going out and buying that and putting big piles of stone up at that. It's a guaranteed price up to that amount set.
That's through CoStars?
What's that? These?
That.
No. CoStars, you don't have to go. So this is basically, someone put together some type of bids.
We did our survey for Washington County co-op with buying agreement thing, and I guess they didn't get any responsible bidders either, and they sent an email stating that go out and get it bid because, so I don't know if that's an issue, because I think in February it was, they filled out a survey thing for co-op buying through Washington County, and Washington County came back, I guess they're not getting money. Yeah, they're not getting any money, so they went back and told the township to go ahead and go out and get rid of it, because we're not getting anywhere with it.
How was this company solicited?
They found it, the ad in the paper.
Public advertising.
So
Public ad.
you advertise in the observer report, right?
Yeah.
I see this.
Now, so one option is to take this bid, then we'd have to still rebid out pipe. Right? We got
Nothing there.
The other option would be to re-advertise and reach out to all of the people that have bid pipe and so forth before directly, advertise and send the bid packet to people.
If it's under, what's the thing, 13,000 or something,
I think it's 12,500.
we'll get some raised. But,
The problem is if liquid fuels won't pay for anything that doesn't put out the bid.
oh no, I think you should always get free prices regardless of what you're buying.
Even if you get one, they're okay with it, we have to advertise it out though.
Maybe on 12,600, between 12,600 and 21,000, sorry, 22,200.
So you're saying 12,000 is a threshold then?
Anything below 12,600, you can just call John Doe. Between 12,600 and 23,200,
You need three bids.
yeah, it's 3 quotes.
They sealed or just,
That one we see on there.
But then what they did here is they advertised the newspaper because it's more than 23,200. So I don't, it seems like, I just didn't have the time, we had a lot of bids.
I think one of the issues is that we didn't reach out to,
I mean, we probably spent an hour, 2 hours just going through bids.
and ask them.
oh, maybe it's who we,
Yeah, since this bid came in, we have made a list of people that have been through the years, here, searched the server for different people that had asked for
Albert,
bids.
no?
They said we have a big stack in there. Like, we didn't even get a bid from the person that won the bid last year.
What do you do for your fuel bill? You don't have a
Helen
tank,
Boy was
that's
the,
right.
yeah, well,
We're getting a tank and we're getting.
last year Helen was the only person that bid. So, how long would it take to rebid?
You have to bid, if you bid it out, get a 45-10. You have to bid twice, no more than 45, no less than 10. The two notices have to be, I think it's 3 days in between
So we can bid this out and vote on it, open bids at the next meeting.
Let's do it that way.
You have to
More
have,
than 10 days.
but you have to bid twice.
Yeah,
You have to
20
have-
days apart. Oh,
We
yeah.
have to count this as one.
You can reject this. What I'm saying is you have to have 3 notices. Sorry, 2 notices in between.
We could reach back to them and ask them to rebid.
They may not do it, they may not do
They
it.
may not.
They may not do it.
The other thing too is, got pricing now, the price is gonna be out there, it may not be lower, since you have opened a public bid.
And people, what they'll do is they will ask, what,
It may be lower, it may not, but people know that number now, so they have that.
well, here's my suggestion, maybe it's up to you, I don't know the price of it, if they're good or bad. Maybe, you don't. Yeah, have you seen prices recently?
Not since we looked at it last year. I don't have all this, I don't have that bid tab here, but.
You suggesting we accept this?
I don't know, like I said. All right, so what? You can't say that they lost. Well, you can reject them.
You need the materials are on that bid list like in the next
No.
30 days.
No, Suzanne just made a motion to put it back on.
If you're gonna do
Do
it.
we have a second? Okay.
So the motion is to reject
Yeah,
those bids
reject this bid,
and to re-advertise, not, because I don't think you have enough time for the next meeting.
not just to re-advertise, but to reach out to the list of,
So you still have,
yeah, the bidding list. Yes,
Yeah.
re-advertise again. So there's some of them, there's some people, I guess, they don't look at the paper, they're just on people's bidding lists.
so your motion is to reject the bids, Suzanne?
Yes.
And to re-advertise with the bids that you do at your second meeting in July, because you're too close, first meeting in July. Right, first meeting in July, you should have enough time.
Okay, so we put it back out to bid with the bids to be mailed to the
Township no later than,
Bids to be submitted no later than, your next, what's the meeting in July?
July tenth.
July 10th.
Second Wednesday in July is the tenth.
So, they're to be submitted by July 10th by noon that day. Or if you want to put it 5, you can keep it at 6 o'clock anyway.
and that was Suzanne's motion exactly, I heard her say it before you did. So all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Hey, he's sucking your hand.
Very good. Good.
Run to discussion items. Alveda Park Phase 2 design updates. Wow us quick.
Yeah, I'll be brief. Before the last meeting, I gave a couple different options for playground equipment to Suzanne to take a look at that we received from Jeffries and Associates. I'm looking for a little bit of guidance from the board as to whether or not they have any preferences for the different equipment, so I can get that information on the drawings and get it finalized. Once we have a final design, I would recommend that we send our design drawings and the quote that we've received from Jeffries and Associates to DCED so that they can review that and make sure they have no issues with it, so that we don't run into an issue when we go to get reimbursed through the grant. So I don't know if you had a chance to look at that stuff yet, Susan.
I
If you have any
did,
thoughts.
and I actually gave it to each of them.
She put it in our mailboxes a little, I guess, last
Everybody look at
Yeah,
it.
I did.
Any preference on A, B, or C?
The cheap one. That was a.
That was it.
Fine.
It's not the cheap one. It's-
So either way, like you don't, as far as the grant,
It's the
you
cheaper,
can't collect the money that you don't use, so.
Right.
So, cheap or not cheap, you don't use it, you give
John
it back.
said A.
You like A,
I like A. It has nice equipment.
A, wrong, yeah, we like
Perfect.
A. Alright.
So our office will move ahead with that, and we'll finalize that design. Maybe by the next meeting, but definitely by the July.
So it's
10th
not
meeting.
true that we've lost that grant money? Just sure. Yeah.
No, we got it extended.
There seemed to be some confusion, we lost that grant money.
No, we're good on El Ramo.
We're good on El Ramo. MS4 program update.
Sure. So Michelle remembers these updates from last year. The board previously authorized our office to help them with the MS4 activity tasks. So I have prepared well, I guess I'll call it a report, an itemized list of the work tasks that Bankston's completed so far to date for the MS4 program. It was sent along with my engineer's report, so hopefully it made it into your meeting packets. So you can read through those items that we've completed so far. We have a couple more tasks to take care of. We have to do the BMP inspection still. And I guess every year our permit requires that we have a conversation in the public forum about the MS4 program and issue reminders for requests for comments from the public. If you see anything that looks like it might be an illicit discharge or any type of runoff or drainage making it to a storm drain that's clearly not storm water, whether that be people dumping oil down the drains or those types of things are not permitted based on our MS4 permit. So if you see anything along those lines that you might think this isn't storm water but it's in our storm drains, you should be reporting that to the township so that
To
we
the
can.
township, and then
Yeah.
if the staff gets a call about that, who do they report it to? Just to be clear.
To Bankson.
Okay, so on the end of Cardox Road near the auto place, there's foamy substance coming down that hill into the drain there.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Advanced auto.
You're talking about like the Phoenix Drive driveway.
Phoenix Drive, and
Okay.
apparently there was a DEP violation for that
Great.
very thing back in 2019, so I'm not sure.
2020.
2020?
Oh, yeah.
But it's happening currently. There's been some changes of stuff up there, and now it's happening again.
All right.
Some sort of foamy substance.
Okay, I'll make a note.
This money comes out of our pocket, right? All
Yes.
MS4,
Yes.
plus you get a grant or something.
Yeah.
Unfunded mandate.
It's an unfunded mandate. To be candid with you know, our board members and the public, Bankston spent a considerable amount of time and effort on the MS4 program last year. There was not much in the way of activity documented for the year prior to our involvement. There was no annual report submitted in 2022, and we had a lot of work to do. So our efforts this year have been considerably less, I would say, so far, since there was a lot of work done last year. Just to kind of get back into the typical routine, the annual permitting requirements. So Diana last year did a great job getting a lot of MS4 information up onto the township's website. So if you have any questions about our township-wide stormwater program, take a look there, because there's helpful information there. And if you have any questions or see anything that looks sketchy, let us know.
When are we supposed to give the deliverable as far as the weight of the sediment that we took out of these things?
Yep, and that's on this to-do list. Larry's referencing the pollution reduction plan, which is our obligation to remove 10% of the sediment and nutrients which make it to our waterways. So we've implemented a storm sewer cleaning program, which removes material from the drains themselves, from the inlets, and by June 30th of this year, the road crew has been taking all that material that's removed from the catch basins, taking it up to the Nike site where we store materials, letting it dry, and then we will discard of all that material at a landfill and have a manifest that tells us the weight of the
That has to
sediment
be
removed.
done by the end of the month.
That work needs to be completed by June 30th, yes. And I had a meeting last week with the road crew, Ron and Ken both participated, and we went over the program in general, and we went over the final few deliverables that are still required here before the end of the month. So once we reach the end of the month and all the work is done, we have a couple months to compile our annual report, which will get submitted to DEP in September.
But the reporting criteria is June 30th.
Is the cutoff, yes. Reporting criteria. There's two pieces. There's two documents we're waiting on from DEP. Back in December, we applied to renew the MS4 permit. The permit renewal has not yet been issued by their office. I suspect it will be soon. And as Larry alluded to earlier in this meeting, we did submit the pollution reduction plan amendment in March, which has been under review by their office. I would expect we'll get that, get feedback on that soon. So that's about all I have on the MS4 program. If anybody has any questions.
Are we supposed to have like a public, I know some other place I represent, we have a situation with public comment about.
Yes.
Are we supposed to be doing that also?
We do, yeah. You have an obligation in your permit once a year to, at a minimum of once a year, to have a conversation similar to what we're having now. It doesn't have to be a special meeting, it can be at a regular
Right,
meeting.
right. So have we done that yet this year?
That's what we're doing right now.
Okay.
I'm making the requests for, any, public comment,
But it doesn't-
questions, those sorts.
What we should do, and what I've seen elsewhere, I try to tell you two things, but we should have, when it says MS4 program updates, we should have like a dash, public, invite, make comment, that way we have a record.
Sure.
Could we also maybe
On the
put on
agenda.
our website asking for public comment?
Yeah.
We can do that too.
That'll solve that. We can put a little blurb on our website asking for what you're saying.
And then I intend to do a similar type of spiel at our second June meeting. We can,
So we'll word it differently on
we
the
can,
agenda.
yeah.
So.
I think Dennis's recommendation is a good one. We can request, put it on the agenda that we're requesting for public input.
I'll word it better on the agenda.
Well, I told you how to word it, so.
I was taking the heat, PJ.
I'm
That's it,
not
that's all I have.
trying to be difficult, I'm just saying how we do it.
So Veterans Park contract closeout. You again, DJ.
Well, I guess this is a question for Dennis. We have received the final pay estimate for Veterans Park. The balance remaining on the contract is $39,410. That's what they're requesting for final payment. We've received the maintenance bond, the consent of surety, and the as-built drawings.
Do we still want to proceed with the?
That's the reason for
Also,
prompting
if
this.
we
as
take
the
off the
agenda.
fence deduct. So I was on the board.
Oh.
And they,
No.
okay, so they did a. Yeah, I printed it. It's from Hirschman. Anyway, I was on the board when they chose to take a different fence material. It was less money, and they did a change order, but then they left. And so I remembered, I voted against changing it to a cheaper material, but, I remembered it happened, and it was a
Right, I
difference in
remember that.
price.
Yeah,
So
I
I
remember
wanted
that.
to make sure that we took off the price of the difference in the fence before we paid it.
Okay. Like we talked about, we set a contract completion date last year that was not met. That's.
How do we handle that? Should we discuss that in public meeting or executive session?
Well, litigation would be executive session related if that's what you intend on pursuing.
I think we should have a discussion about it.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you're considering pursuing that, I think we can ask Nate when he comes back in. I think that would be executive session.
Agreed.
So that would be acceptable under the executive session.
I think we need to have, I think we have, been documented.
I wouldn't show your cards to the public that are PC watching, that's all I'm saying. We have the,
Won't be hiding.
well, no, I'm saying, I feel free to say
No, I'm not saying anything. I
but you
just think
do
we need to
have
a
the option
discussion.
to talk about it.
He asked me for an update on as to the status of the final estimate, which is why I asked to
So
bring it
is
back up.
that maybe at the end of this meeting, we have an executive session to talk about, it, or we're here, but we're not meeting again for 2 weeks? Or could we do it?
I think we should do it after he did his private vacation.
Okay, is that why you got a haircut? You got a vacation?
No, because my wife told me I had to.
That often happens. Often happens.
And just so the board is aware, I will be out of the office next week. If you have any questions, if anything comes up, Randy Krause will be able to answer any questions if you have. So I've given him a copy of my engineer's report. He knows what's going on.
Take one of those international conflicts.
Maybe.
Burying all the folks.
Okay, so short on D, there's been a request from the road crew regarding a piece of equipment, a front loader that is over 20 years old. He had reached out looking for quotes, and that is in your packet from a few different people, but if you could talk to the road superintendent, there's what he believes to be some serious safety issues starting to go on.
Just one more authorized to move on, so we'll do it.
Yeah, so we authorized at our board table a few months ago
I think that's the other.
for no, I think that one we did replace. We replaced one. No, we replaced one last year, but you are correct. The one that we approved a couple meetings ago, you can't get, because the machine's so old, they don't make the safety harness attachment anymore.
I don't think the safety harness matters from what I understand. When he's driving down the street, it just stops.
Yes, well, because it doesn't feel like he's strapped in. So the sensor doesn't know he's strapped in, and he's driving it, and it just stops because it believes he's undone his seatbelt. So the safety harness, assembly isn't made anymore. This machine's so old. It is a very, very racing machine. So we are gonna have to look at financing for how many years, how many rates. So this is the beginning of this discussion to look at these quotes, this request, and maybe talk to the road superintendent for more detail about what he thinks
I
is
think we
happening
should
with
bring the
that.
vendors in and have a candid conversation.
And
So
that,
we can hear what they have to say, longevity, how much are you gonna give us for the unit that we'll give you back, it's not that old.
we might also have to put that one on the list, but I don't know if we can even just trade it in.
You'll get.
It's a 25 grand on the one from here.
From John Deere, they loaded 25 grand.
But is that a value? I mean,
I don't know.
I don't know either, so we do a little kind of research.
Yeah.
The need is there.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Okay,
be
but-
honest with you, to avoid like the executive session thing and so forth, I'm gonna take a meal to people that might know about equipment more than me. And then you can, if there's something that you can do, that way we won't be doing it in executive session and maybe you can
Yeah,
advise the board on your choices.
I'll do a little legwork.
I could talk to them all day and I'm not gonna be the one choosing the front runner for sure.
I don't
Yeah,
claim to
or
be
choosing
an expert in
runner.
it, but we need to have some dialogue, we need to have some questions, we need to be engaged in the process.
So, boards, take a look at the documentation, in your packets, and maybe, some of the board members can schedule time for some of them.
Plus, I don't know if we have $179,000.
Yeah.
No con, not giving up on that.
I know you're not. We also have to look at whether or not it's finance, what rate they are normally financed. So, I'll take a yield to, any other board member on making those appointments with the vendors. I just don't know enough about equipment. I brought that with me tonight.
Thank you.
I mentioned that earlier, but yeah,
I
that
thought I
was.
heard it.
So the pension audit, I think that we probably should table that until we get some more of it. I mean, it's just a discussion, but I think to have a detailed discussion. We have an issue with the Auditor General's audit of 2020-21, correct?
There's three audits.
Two.
20,
It
20,
was 3 years. It was
Yeah.
22, 23, 21, 22, 23.
But we have three pensions. And there was three issues, there were issues with each of the three pensions. One being the police, one being the road crew, and one being the administrative staff. I know right now we're preparing letters to go, I guess we try and talk to Malcolm, who is your actuary for your defined benefit for your police pension fund, so we're in the process of communicating with them.
And so to have a more detailed discussion about that further ahead with more information from April's office about that, I'm just asking that we maybe bring that up at another, it's only half cooked. We only have half the information. Motion to approve bill. Motion to approve the payroll of 5/25/2024 of $22,471.18. I'll make a motion to approve that payroll.
Second.
Michelle made the motion, Larry second, all in favor? Aye. Motion to approve the payroll dated 6/7/2024 in the amount of $19,393.28.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Discussion and motion to approve the other bills and invoices in the amount of $2,007. 2007. I'm sorry. That's what I'm trying to rush. That's why I'm trying to rush out. $207,036.25. That includes our quarterly payment for the Monongahela Police Department, which is why it's a little bit more high than normal. All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, you know what, you made the motion. I'm sorry, I said all in favor, but I meant to say second. You second?
Yes.
Okay, Carl made the motion, Larry second, all in favor?
Aye.
I'm looking up the all this thing.
8:52.
I make a motion to adjourn at 8:52. John second.